Hello and welcome to the GLHF YouTube channel. I am Dave Breens and I'm here with the big bus bold, Kirk McKean.
That's me. I'm a chrome dome.
I'm a chrome dome. Okay, perfect. It is embargo time for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it is about damn time. How you been feeling about it, Kirk?
Good, very good. I mean, I think personally it's pretty much an improvement over remake in every way that matters. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I do. I was a big fan of remake, despite not being necessarily a big fan of the original. My history of like Final Fantasy VII Original was like I had a DRM-free CD that someone gave me that I could run on my Windows XP PC many years ago, and I got out of Midgar, and then my PC crashed and got wiped. But at the same time, I watched Advent Children, and I, for some reason, finished Crisis Core, and so I'm very into the Final Fantasy VII mythos, despite not having finished the first one. And I think this is pretty fantastic. Final Fantasy VII Remake was a game I really liked, but had loads of issues with, and almost all of those issues have been addressed to a degree.
Yeah, and just to give a bit of history on my past with Final Fantasy VII, I'm a complete mark. I wrote Final Fantasy VII fanfiction, and then that fanfiction turned out to be Advent Children. It was basically the same thing. But yeah, I love the world. I love the characters. It means a lot to me because it landed at like an important time in my life. It was probably the first game that like the story properly resonated with me. I didn't realize that games could do that until that point. I think if you talk to a lot of people, they'll say their favorite Final Fantasy is the first one they played. And for me, it was the first one I played. It holds a special place in my heart. And I think this does a lot of the big moments that I was hoping to see justice, and like goes way beyond what I even expected from them. For example, we're not going to spoil, but like the Junon Parade is just perfect, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is. There's a lot of moments in this game that I absolutely adored. But what surprised me was that like I just want to for comparison, Final Fantasy VII Remake was an incredibly linear game that felt very drawn out. There were innumerable tight corridors to squeeze through and like sidle through, and as a result, I finished that game and I was like, I quite liked that. I will never play it again. And I haven't finished Rebirth yet, unlike you, Kirk, but I've been playing it for much longer than Remake lasted, and I haven't felt the same degree of burnout yet.
Yeah, and I think that's like, first off, it's structured completely differently, isn't it? There's a lot of variety in the towns you visit and the places you visit, like from the Gold Saucer to Calm, the village. And between each of those major locations, you've got like a mini like open world section, and there's usually like a gimmick attached to it, isn't there? Like a different traversal method or something. But I think the openness of it is best encapsulated in the new movement mechanic, which is Assassin's Creed-esque, I'd say. Like you hold down sprint and you can clamber up any surface pretty much, right? And that's because the terrain's more naturalistic, like there's cliffs and stuff, but it doesn't feel like the paths are linear corridors like they were in Remake, like you say. It feels like it's an open space and there's more than one route to take to get to your location and things like that, which I think it adds quite a bit to it. It makes it feel like a more cohesive world.
Yeah, absolutely. To be fair, like doing side quests in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, because the game was so linear, sometimes it was literally a case of there's a fork in the road, I'm either going to go left or right, that's either the main or the side quest area, you know? Like that's how the level design often felt in that game. But in Rebirth, because of the open world nature of it, and the fact that almost everything you visit on the open world ends up being a fast travel point, it doesn't feel like I'm retracing my steps in the same way. I'm often like in the first couple of maps, it's very flat, very open ground, very easy to get around. Later on, they do mix it up a little bit more, make it a little bit more challenging, but then I quite like that as well. I was looking at the map like, oh, if I fast travel to here and take this route around to it, it's actually easier to get to, instead of just being able to drive in a diagonal line across the map anywhere I wanted.
Yeah, I will say though that does create some issues later on. Like, there's some side quests where you can see where it is on the map, but you don't quite know how to get to it, and it turns out that it's like around the side of a cliff. There's some yellow handholds that you got to go up to like scale around the cliff or something. Like there's only one entrance into that space, and it's a area of the map that you wouldn't have got to unless you were just like pushing around the edges of where that objective might be, which is a little bit frustrating. And like we said before in our private conversation as well, some of the later areas, the topography is a lot more complex. So like the jungle area, you're bouncing around on mushrooms, and you've got to bounce on a specific mushroom to reach a certain point, and that stuff doesn't work as well. But I think you haven't seen this yet, but there's an area after that where it makes getting around so easy, and like it kind of makes you forget how painful that was.
Okay,
nice.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. I honestly, I feel like if I was going to make a complaint about the open worlds that I've seen so far, it would be that the things you do in them are like quite repetitive. I feel like the first time you find the open world grasslands area, and you can 100% that, and it'll feel good, and it'll feel fairly unique, each area and each bit. And the second time you're like, okay, it's these tasks again, that's fine. And then the third one it's like, oh, okay, it's these tasks again. It definitely starts to grate, but I feel like it does a pretty good job of pacing things out because of all the main story sections you visit, and how different a lot of the activities tend to be moment to moment. Like when you're not running about the open world, completing random side quests and stuff, there's so many mini games. There's so many incredibly detailed cutscenes. The Queen's Blood game is fantastic. Like there's a breadth to it which I really didn't expect.
Yeah, and I will say as well, the mini games, I thought, to be honest, that they would be in service of the Gold Saucer, because in the original game, when you go to the Gold Saucer, the majority of the games there are just like the mini games that you've played already up to that point, in the game. But when you go to the Gold Saucer in this, it's new mini games. Like it's not a repetition of the things you've been doing. It's completely new stuff, which I thought was brilliant. And there's new stuff to earn and things like that. But I think what makes the side quests compelling is more the fact that you're rewarded with like a character moment for most of them. So like a quest about picking flowers, in any other RPG I'd roll my eyes so hard at that, right? But in this, it's an excuse to spend time with Aerith, and not only that, but you've got like cards, and you look at them, and you've got like drawings of the flowers you need to pick, and depending on what you pick depends on how much of a bond you grow with Aerith and stuff. And I think it's in those moments that makes you feel compelled to go through these side quests, because you want to spend more time with these characters because they're so well realized. I think they've all got their quirks, and you can ask why remake such a beloved classic game, and I think the fidelity lends itself to like building out these characters a lot more. Like you see the quirks of their personalities with the visual fidelity we've got nowadays.
I completely agree. It was just the other day I saw someone saying that Grand Blue Fantasy Relink had like 0 downtime to just hang out with the party and sort of like get to know the characters, and that game is obviously a part of a really big established series, and it assumes that you're going to know all those characters going in. I feel like Final Fantasy VII is kind of the same in the sense that everyone knows who the characters are, but it still gives you plenty of time to get to know them further. Like even though I as I said, I didn't finish the original game, I feel like spending time with Barrett, Tifa, Aerith through the first game and now this one, like I don't know, I'm getting such a better idea of who these characters are, why they're so beloved. There's definitely plenty of time to settle in with them, which I feel like in the first game, even though it was very long, there wasn't really that much of that, in remake.
Yeah, and I think they've done such a great job of like portraying what those characters are like as polygons into proper 3D models as well, because like I thought when they first announced remake that they were going to mess Cloud up so bad, because as a kid you think Cloud's cool, but Cloud thinks Cloud's cool, but actually he's a bit of a dog. And I think they really get that across in this. He's a try hard. He's trying too hard to act cool.
Yeah.
I do think one of the issues, though, I didn't really go into this in my review, but there just wasn't really space for it. I already spoke far too much. But a lot of the like side characters from Remake that weren't even necessarily in the original game, and some that were, they show up again in Rebirth, and it's a bit of a Star Wars problem, right? It's a galaxy or a world or whatever, and everyone's everywhere. Like everyone's left Midgar, and they just happen to be like in a beach hut or something, like in the middle of nowhere, and it tries to give you closure on everyone. I don't think it needed to do that, and sometimes it feels a little bit forced, but it's a small complaint.
That's completely fair. I feel like you can sort of sometimes feel how it wants to be its own game, while at the same time it's part of a sequel trilogy, you know. And it sometimes it struggles to balance both parts of that, because on the one hand, it assumes the player's going to know quite a lot. Like the Final Fantasy VII is quite known for a character death, and it's like the game obviously assumes you're coming into this aware of that happening. You know, like there's a lot of assumed knowledge, but then there's a lot of stuff where it's sort of like, hey, this is actually a self-contained game. You don't need to play the others. It sometimes struggles to balance that, I think.
Yeah, and again, I won't spoil anything, but the end completely encapsulates this, because it crawls up its own arse in the last couple of hours, and it tries too hard to be something new while also being loyal to the source material, and it feels almost like they had 5 ideas and there was like, let's just do all 5 of them at once.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a bit much.
I gotta tell you, I'm actually excited for it because for some reason I've become a fan of Nomura, not necessarily his games, but just how he goes off. Just how he goes off. Like
I was expecting a Kingdom Hearts thing to come up. Like that's how deranged it is.
Yeah. Well, that's honestly, I'd be down for it. It was like how he kind of was like, you know, outwardly outraged at Final Fantasy 15, and then like Kingdom Hearts 3 and its DLC, and then Final Fantasy 7 Remake all had like allusions to Versus 13 or Nomura's ideal Noctis and all that stuff. And God, I love it. It's like I'm looking at a man losing his mind, but also he's got millions upon millions of dollars to do it, and I'm like, oh hell yeah, please just see where this ends up. So part of me is actually excited to see just how off the rails it's going to go, but for now, that's probably enough on the story. I'd love to talk to you about the combat, though.
Yeah, I mean, the combat's mostly unchanged from Remake. There's a couple of things that make it a little bit more engaging, and one of them is the perfect time blocks, which we spoke about before. If you time a block well, it just negates damage, which is brilliant because it makes you more engaged in the combat. You know, you're thinking about the block button, which you don't necessarily need to do in Remake, because you can just cast Cura and you know, negate the damage that way. But in this, like, playing well does matter. And then you've got obviously the elemental weaknesses are a bit of a double-edged sword, because you've got these new abilities where like you can do a fire attack with your sword or something. Yeah, it's not as powerful as like say Faraja, but it's free. Like it costs no MP, so if you're struggling and you need to use an elemental weakness, you can kind of do it even if you've not equipped your characters the right way. Maybe that'll be more difficult in like the harder difficulty settings, which you unlock after completing it. But yeah, I don't know. So, sometimes it feels a bit like materia matters a lot less in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I feel like I'm using my spells less than I ever did before, including Cura, partially because I can, you know, negate all damage and block them away, which is really good. But I love the small mechanical tweaks that have been made to the move list across the cast as well. Like if you dodge as Cloud and immediately start attacking, he like lets off a flurry which has like a ranged attacks, which is great. But if you hold the button during that flurry, he will actually dash at the enemy, and he will dash even if they're in the air, and then start doing an aerial combo, which is great because in the original game, Cloud was utterly useless as soon as he was against an enemy that was flying high above him, and he couldn't reach it with his sword. You had to swap to Barret, and if Barret wasn't around, then you just struggle to get ATB until you could cast a spell at him. Yeah, no, it feels like they've just made small but super important and impactful tweaks across the board, and it's just good stuff in my opinion.
I agree, and Red 13's a cool character to play as. You know, you get to the demo spoiled it, but you get to try Sephiroth for a bit as well. And also Kate Sith is playable, and I don't know if you've got to Kate Sith yet, Dave, have you? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, their moveset's wild, really. Like, they're based around the look statistic, which means that they often get, like, limit break. It just resets. So you can just do a limit break, and then you've got another limit break, and then you've got another limit break, and you just keep throwing limit breaks at people. And you can end fights in, like, a couple of seconds with Kate sometimes. It's kind of insane.
Yeah. It's just super strong, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, for me, for games like this, combat is what keeps me actually playing, and Rebirth is keeping me playing. And like in the original game, again remake, I mean, if I'd switched to another character, it's like it would be like I didn't really want to. I had to swap to Barrett to get an aerial character, or I had to swap to Aerith to use a quick heal, or so on and so forth. I liked playing as Tifa, but not as much as Cloud. In this game, if I swap to Yuffie or Tifa, I'm just going to play as Yuffie or Tifa for the entire battle, boss fight, whatever. I think they feel great, they play great, I love their abilities. Again, just the minor tweaks that have been made make it feel just better across the board.
And some of the end game stuff as well, like some of the optional like boss battles and things like that, you really have to switch between all three characters, you know, mixing their abilities and trying to hit the like as much damage as you can during the stagger and things like that, which again it feels great because you're thinking about, oh, do I save this slice of ATB in case I need a cure, you know, do I do a synergy attack and get infinite MP for a few seconds so I can fire off some powerful spells while it's staggered and things like that. There's a lot to think about, and it all happens so fast, like you don't even consciously realize that you're engaging with it on such a strategic level, because it, you know, you're just pressing buttons. Like, it's not like menus like the old game, but I think it captures that same feeling of strategy as the original, but in real-time combat, which is it's an achievement. I think it's better than Final Fantasy 16's combat. I'm sorry, I do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like Final Fantasy 16 actually had a great combat system, but it didn't mesh super well with the RPG mechanics of what you'd expect from Final Fantasy, and a majority of the enemies on your first playthrough are just too weak to make use of all the cool combo stuff. Like, I'm sure in Final Fantasy mode that's not an issue, but you have to play the game once to get there, and you're probably not going to want to play for another 60 hours after that point, in all honesty. And yeah, this game, I definitely feel like just the ability to swap between the cast for me makes the combat feel more dynamic, but the fact that they're all so varied and they all feel so good, it speaks for itself. I really do can't speak highly enough of the combat in this game. What's our closing thoughts?
I mean, for me, it's a 10 out of 10 game until the end, and then it's a 9 out of 10 game.
Okay. As I said, I haven't finished it, but just a lot of praise coming from me right now. I can't think of anything that stands out to me that's like, oh, this is game ruining. This is ruining my immersion. This is like a big roadblock. Like I said, I haven't got to the end yet. I haven't seen the final open world area, but I'm going to be getting there. And by then, who knows? I just might agree with Kirk.
Yeah, and I would really like to speak to someone who's never played Final Fantasy VII in any form or seen any Final Fantasy VII media, because, like you say, it assumes that knowledge... I mentioned this in my review as well. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a mad tangent now, even though we were just closing it up. But there's a character called Bugenhagen. He's Red 13's mentor. He's meant to be the most like knowledgeable guy in the universe. And in this, you just think he's kind of past it. He's an old dude who doesn't... He's not open to new ideas and stuff, because you know more than he does. In the original, he's telling you how the world works. In this, it's like the characters and you know more. And because Nomura's messed with how the mechanics of the world actually work, he doesn't know anything, really. His views of the live stream and everything are all outdated, which kind of ruins him as a character a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel that. I haven't quite got to him yet, but I'm excited to see what I think, honestly.
At least we know he's not flying around on his scrotum now.
Is what?
Have you never seen the original Bugenhagen?
No.
I'm going to show you a picture.
Oh, okay.
Because in this, he's flying around in a ball of materia, and I did not know what that was when I was a kid. Because it does not look like... It looks like a ball of some sort, but not that kind.
I see. All right, okay. I'm eagerly awaiting the picture. For now, thank you very much for joining me, Kian.
No worries, mate.
Final Fantasy 7 out 29th February? 29th?
Something like that. We've had it about 3 weeks. Great.
Yeah, play it. Bye.